Yo, what the deal be, everybody? I hope you all doing well. It's about to be Turkey Day, but ain't no turkeys up in this piece, baby.
Spawnable is the premier podcast spotlighting people of color. Every week, we talk news, what we've been playing, and tell you who's invited to the cookout. Our show is all about talking about gaming through a prism of blackness, because we are the culture. Welcome to Brookago, y'all.
What the deal be, everybody in Brookago? This is your man. This is Kahlief Adams. This is the Spawn on Me podcast. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you are rocking it everywhere you go. I hope you are doing well. I hope everything is coming to fruition that you are hoped for. We're almost at the end of the year, but we are not at the end of our show. We're literally at the beginning of it because we're sparking it up. We're making it happen. We're making everything go down in the ways that we need to. I hope you're washing your hands, wash your butt. I hope you're social distancing. I hope you're doing everything you need to do to make yourself okay in these troubling, but also semi-amazing times. We are living in some of the best days and some of the worst days at the same time. And it's really, really difficult to know what end is up. I have no clue. But we're rocking it all today and doing our thing. Shout out to everybody in podcast land. Shout out to everybody in Twitch land. Shout out to everybody doing their thing and making it happen. I'm super excited today because we have a fantastic show lined up for you all. If you missed our last week's episode, you missed a banger and a half. We did a little bit of recap. I gave you my impressions and my winners for the Game Awards, the upcoming Game Awards. So understand that all of those are correct and all of those will be the ones that wind up winning for the 2020 Game Awards. Understand that that's going to happen in a real way. So manifest that in your mind and make that be the thing that you need for this life. Also, we had one of my favorite and honestly, I feel like one of our best interviews of not only 2020, but of the, time that we've been doing Spawn on Me with corporate VP of gaming ecosystems. Sarah Bond was on our show. A huge episode for us. I think a lot of folks shared some fantastic commentary about, what they thought about that episode. They felt like it gave a really different, layer to being able to talk to someone that high up in the company, and also gave Sarah Bond a wonderful place to be able to talk to all of you here in Brookago about all the things that they are doing over in the Xbox land, which I think was super dope. And thank you to her again for rocking with us last week. But this week, we have somebody who I have been very, very excited to come on to the show. I have been a huge fan of this gentleman. I have been watching his star skyrocket. I have been watching him become one of the dopest folks in the gaming industry. And I'm super excited to say that we are rocking this week, my man, my mellow, the smoothest kind of fellow. We are rocking with the one and only Steve Saylor is joining us this week here in Brookago. I am super hyped to be able to say we got the fam Steve rolling through. What the deal be, Steve? How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on. This is a long time coming.
Yo, we have talked a little bit about this for how many we talked about this probably like at least 2 years ago. We had a quick discussion because we were like ships passing in the night, right? Like, yep. I think it was one of those things where I think maybe I had just done like What's Good Games or something like that, and then I think like a little bit after that you kind of came on kind of funny, or it was like There's been this interesting leapfrog of everyone doing kind of funny, What's Good, and then all the other stuff in between. And we've all kind of like done this role together. It's like we're all playing Dark Souls together.
Yep, pretty much.
But I'm super hyped to have you on for multiple reasons. I gushed over you a little bit before we started on air tonight. I'm gonna gush again now that we're actually on air. We got people in chat hanging out. I have to say, I am amazingly proud of you. Like, I am, there are folks in this industry who, we see everybody through our kind of best moments, right? We see everybody through the times that we all kind of like poke on social media and we're like, oh, I saw somebody do something really cool over here. Like, who's that person? Or I saw somebody over here doing that thing. And you have been in the space for a very long time. We're going to talk about that in a second. But I think this year specifically has been nuts for you. Like, this has been a like astoundingly good year in terms of the way things have kind of run this year. first of all, let the folks know exactly who you are and what you do, and then I kind of want to talk about this crazy run that we've had for 2020 for you.
Yeah. So, hi, I'm Steve Saylor. I'm commonly known as the Blind Gamer, or at least that's how I go on YouTube. I'm an accessibility advocate and consultant, and I've worked with a few studios in my short career as a consultant. I've worked with Ubisoft. I can officially say I did a little bit of work on Watch Dogs Legion, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I've done some stuff with EA, and then most recently, or I guess not necessarily most recently anymore, but at least this year, I also helped out with consult with Naughty Dog on The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah. So that is like the dopest, just like offhand flex. Because I love how just chill you said all of those wonderful accolades that you said. Plus, you've won an award. Didn't you win an award like a couple of months ago or something to that effect?
I was nominated for Content Creator of the Year for the Canadian Game Awards. I didn't win, but I mean, as they say, it's cool to be nominated. I'm cool with that.
Yeah. I mean, so I always do prep before the show. And I've known of your work for a long time. I've, followed your work for a couple of years now, just, in the circles of everybody who's been in this kind of DNI space, right? We do it from a kind of race and ethnicity perspective. You're doing it from an accessibility perspective. And then all of our Venn diagrams always wind up meeting at some point anyway, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
And it's been not only super cool to see the conversation around accessibility grow in this way, and I think it's grown at least, double or tenfold at this point since when I first started to have these conversations in the industry a while ago. What's the journey been like? Because you've been a content creator for a long period of time now. Like it's not like you're just a new cat coming to the stage and being like, yeah, I'm just new on the block and I'm just killing it every which way. You've earned your stripes and you paid your dues for a long time.
Yeah, so I am still relatively new, at least in fully in my career, in the video game space. But I have been creating content for basically about 15 years at this point. I started back in 2005 when podcasting was still new and you had to code an XML spreadsheet in order for your podcast feed to work. I think Gamertag Radio probably beats me in at least by a little bit in in being the first kind of gaming related podcast, because I had a podcast in 2007. That was kind of my main big one. But I've been doing this for so long, but I had never really kind of did anything game related until about 2015 when I started essentially my Blind Gamer YouTube channel. I had a YouTube channel since 2005. That's why my URL is youtube.com/snowball. Snowball was my nickname since I was a kid, and I signed up in 2005 thinking I'll just use that as my nickname, and basically that URL stuck, and I've had that for now 15 years. But when I started the Blind Gamer, it essentially was a way for me to just tell my friends, because I for years I was always a casual gamer.
Yeah.
But I used to think I just sucked at video games. I was really bad. Didn't even think really that it was my eyesight that was kind of getting in the way. I just sort of felt there's certain things I can't see on the screen, but I didn't think that it was affecting necessarily my gameplay. I just thought I just sucked. And so I thought you know what? I'll create this sort of Let's Play YouTube channel where I've been telling my friends for years I sucked at video games. Now I get to show them proof. And and it literally was just and I just thought my niche was that I was blind. And that's basically kind of how that whole started in 2015. And then over the course, it was every year there was always something kind of big that happened. I remember that first year, when I first started, I had 130 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
Within a few months, literally just one random YouTuber in Greece saw one of my videos, put a thing out on his channel saying, you need to follow this dude. And within 24 hours, I was up to 1,500 subscribers.
Wow.
And yeah. And I was like, oh, damn. Okay, there's something here. And so I basically started to dedicate to that. And then I sort of discovered kind of accessibility, literally actually on a stage in a panel which was funny. It. I was invited by I was invited by Ubisoft here in Toronto where I live, and they were doing this like UX summit where they had a whole bunch of developers come from across the industry come to Toronto and learn about actually this day I was on was all about accessibility. So we had people from Naughty Dog, from Microsoft, from Rockstar, from pretty much all across the industry. And I was on a panel. I was basically the gamer in the room. And that's why I would kind of pictured it. It was like, okay, yeah, that's the thing that's what I'm here for. But it and I didn't really think about accessibility. I don't think I even really heard a lot about accessibility up until that point. And then literally on stage, I had an epiphany. And I said, like, because I kept saying I sucked at games for years, but in reality, it was that games sucked for me. And it was at that moment that I was like, okay, accessibility is kind of like where I want to do it. And I've been doing that since 2017.
That's wild. I mean, it's also one of those things too, where it's like, it is interesting to hear you say, like, I learned about this stuff on a panel that I was on. Like, it's kind of wild, right? And I think one of the things that especially this week has been very, very difficult. It's just been hard in terms of a lot of different things. The world has been hard. American Thanksgiving is happening tomorrow, and worrying about the pandemic, and then seeing stream friends and internet friends and people who I love being harassed online has been nuts. And it's been one of those things where I always have to remember, like, none of us are experts, right? None of us are experts when you start this work. None of us are folks who are like, hey, I'm going to know everything all at once, all at the same time, as soon as I decide to become a content creator, right? You have to learn the process of being more of a public person and learning how to understand your place in the big puzzle, right? When that light bulb hit for you, that you were like, oh, one, my vision is impairing me in these ways, in the ways that I play. And two, oh crap, this is a thing that I may actually want to start to talk about in a broader sense. When did that thing kind of start for you? When did that kind of hit?
So it was essentially like, because it was like 2017 was that realization. I was like, okay, I'm going to start focusing on accessibility and kind of switching my content to just being, instead of just being like only gaming videos, like literally just kind of talking about accessibility and connecting with people in the accessibility community and stuff like that. So I was kind of slowly doing that over like the course from 2017 to like the end of 2018. And then as it happened, like that's the thing, like at the time I was doing a lot of Blind Gamer stuff kind of on the side as like my side thing, because I was working in the radio industry. I was working in that industry for 12 years. I was a digital content producer for two of the largest radio stations in all of Canada. And I was running the websites and the social media and all the content for classic hit station, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and then also a hip hop station in Toronto. And I was like, oh, okay. Like it was two completely different audiences, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna create content all around it. And as the thing is in radio, like there's a saying that literally you can't say you worked in radio unless you've been laid off in radio. And that's literally what happened to me at the beginning of 2019. And so I thought, okay, I have a bit of, thankfully I had a very good severance check, which was nice. And I figured, you know what, I'm going to invest into trying to be a content creator and an advocate for accessibility full time. And I, like last year, I worked my ass off. Like I went to as many conventions as I could within a short period of time. I went to GDC last year, I went to E3, I went to PAX East. I did a bunch of consulting work and like I did as much as I could. And then I was like, in 2020, I was like, okay, this is great. I'm in it. I'm ready to go. Let's do this. And then the pandemic hit and I'm like, damn, what do I do now? And because I literally I was supposed to, like, my starting point for 2020 was going to be GDC, like proper, because I got like a pass and I was able to kind of go to, I had lined up a bunch of meetings with a bunch of people in the industry, and obviously that didn't happen. And I thought, well, what the hell am I going to do? And then what saved it, like, and just really exploded for me was obviously with The Last of Us when that released. And yeah, then that viral video that is now it made me infamous for crying on the internet. That like kind of all throughout that is just like, that's kind of like, basically it was like 2019 was like that starting year, and then like 2020 it was like, it feels like it's been like all of what I've been working for, like all that karma that I've been saving up for 15 years, is like I cashed in all my chips in 2020, and this is how it all happened.
I mean, it's kind of how it happens, right? Where it is just you know, you bust your butt, you make sure you get all the things done, and you knock it out of the park, and then like a thing happens, and then that thing is the like thing that pushes you forward with all the kind of energy that goes along with that. As a former radio person myself, I'm happy to know that you also did radio as well. The one thing I have to ask you is, do you remember your call letters?
CHBM, that was the classic hit station, and then CFXJ. That was the that was Flow.
Nice. I mean, it's one of those things too. You can kind of tell sometimes when folks have done radio before. It's like there's a timbre in the voice, there's a cadence in the way you speak. I was like, oh, once you said that, I was like, oh, that totally clicks. I can hear it now.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people say whenever they find out I worked in radio. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, you have a voice for radio. I'm like, wait, I didn't before, and just only now.
It's wild because it is one of those things where just like, yo, radio, like you can tell, like, you know, the radio brethren and sisterin when you hear it. So yeah, 2020 has just been a funky year. It has been one of those things where I think a lot of folks now are having to reassess, you know, not only, you know, kind of where they sit in the, you know, in the hierarchy of the industry, but also have had to then try to figure out new ways to kind of reinvent themselves, because all those other opportunities that were kind of there already didn't dry up, but they're just different, right? And we're still kind of waiting for things to settle down and for pandemics to go away and people to figure all that kind of stuff out. What's been the adjustment for you that you've kind of seen yourself do this year? I've seen you doing everything from IGN to, you know, Kind of Funny to, you know, all these other shows. What's been the readjustment for you in a way that you feels like you've kind of grown into, you know, maybe not necessarily a new content creator in the different ways you do it, but you've added some tools to your toolbox?
Wow, that's a really great question. The thing that I had been building all this time was mainly like how to be able to create content in a basically professional quality as possible, whether that's audio or video. I spent like majority of my adult life learning, basically teaching myself a lot of that trade. But one of the things I didn't really get a chance to learn was really kind of like understand the influencer aspect of being a content creator, because of before The Last of Us thing hit and went viral. I mean, I had a pretty decent following, but it wasn't like a huge amount where I felt like I could basically go to a company and being like, hey, I've got this audience that would be interested in this. I always kind of felt uncomfortable about that. But and then also as well, I never realized how like really like I used to think like influencer was kind of almost a bad word in our sort of lexicon, because it could be seen as like, oh, like either an Instagram model or just like a TikTok star, that kind of thing. And it was, I mean, not to knock any of those, because there's amazing people that are on that are doing those, but it just sort of felt like being an influencer felt like it was kind of like one of those like, that's one of the things that the little kids are doing, are able to do. But this year, because of like essentially my audience doubled like overnight pretty much, and I've had to learn how to manage that audience, but not necessarily in a way that like, okay, now I need to sort of be squeaky clean and all that, because I'm like, there's mistakes I've made even this year alone, like in trying to be able to figure that out. I'll probably make mistakes even in the future, but I've realized the gravity and the weight of what my sort of my thoughts and my opinions can hold, and also my influence in the industry. Like, and that's not an egotistical thing for me. I just think it's like, even just in it, like in the small little kind of world that I had inhabit in this industry, I had to learn that, okay, yeah, no, that's like my words carry weight now. And I need to be careful of that. I need to be responsible for that, because that is something that I don't take for granted. I am extremely honored, humbled, and blessed every time I get to be able to do something really cool, which this year I've done like things that I only dreamt of when I first started. And now it's like 2021. I'm like, I need to come up with new goals. Or new dreams, because I've pretty much fulfilled a lot of them. But that was sort of the things I kind of like had to put in my toolbox, was the realizing and making sure that I'm responsible for the influence that I do have.
I'm so happy to hear you say that. Because I think that there is a thing that exponentially changes with the more people you bring into the fold, right? And that part is extremely hard to deal with. I don't think a lot of folks who, and again, this is not some, woe is me, people follow me on the internet and like the stuff I do. Like, it's not like that conversation.
No, me either. Yeah.
Because it's not that, but it is one of those things where I feel immense amounts of pressure to not fuck up. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the pressure that I feel to not fuck up has made me less willing to step out on limbs that I used to step out on easily, right? Have you been feeling, like, how much are you feeling that too? Because I know I'm feeling it a lot.
Yes, 100%. Like I feel just there's an immense amount of pressure. Like anytime I sort of say anything that is not in my wheelhouse, essentially. And I think even this year with basically like with everything, I mean, that you have like in the Black community has kind of been through, like I mean, I gotta give you props for that episode earlier this year, when you had Zombie, Cameron, Pika, Bless, and Paris on, because that opened my eyes in a massive way. Not the fact that I was like unaware of what was going on, but it gave me perspective that I had never been able to understand. Yeah. And that in and of itself, like that kind of gave me the confidence to at least be able to speak out about that kind of stuff. I've been afraid ever since then to basically still like say anything or do anything.
Yeah.
But I think in a way it's sort of like it's a two-edged sword in a way, where it's like it emboldens me to basically be like, okay, I have a voice. I want to have my voice be for good, and I want to be able to stand up for friends and that are being oppressed and hated upon, harassed, and I want to be able to do that. But then also I have to understand that, okay, there is the negative aspect of that, where there's going to be people that are going to be extremely pissed off, and that I'm sort of jumping into that, and it's like, well, you should stay out of politics or stay out of religion or whichever, and I'm like, I am still. It's a constant battle every time. I'm just, I want to stand up, but also I'm afraid to, because I'm afraid of saying and doing the wrong thing, even with the right intentions.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I am so deathly afraid of is anything I do that it can come across as not being well intentioned, because I don't want to. I personally, I don't want to offend anybody. Like, and I know that's sort of like a common sort of cliche thing, but
sure.
It's like, that truly is my thing. I want to love. I love everybody. I grew up Christian, so that love your neighbor is so ingrained in my personality, in my morals, and in my spirit that I'm just like, that's all I want to do. And whenever I hear that, if anybody's pissed off or hates me in any way, that hurts more, because I don't know what I did to offend that person. And I don't want and that is something that like I have just every time I stand up on anything, it's just like, that's the thing that kind of goes through my head. I'm like, I don't want to get mad, but also like I have to like, I can't just sort of walk on eggshells around it. Like there's things happening in this world that I'm like, that needs to change, and that needs to needs to be done in a way that basically makes this industry more inclusive for everybody. And I want to help that. I want to be a part of that change, and I hope I can. But yeah, that is something that is an extreme amount of pressure like this year alone that I've never this is a new thing for me, and I hope I do well. I that's the thing I say every day. It's like I hope I can do well today.
It's really nice to hear, because I talk about this stuff behind the scenes with a lot of other folks, right? And I feel like the place that we find ourselves in currently is super peculiar in lots of different ways, because one, the internet is wild as shit and people do whatever the hell they want, and there's this level playing ground with misinformation, disinformation, and actual truth, right?
Yeah.
Where folks who are like, yo, this is my experience and this is what I'm feeling and this is what I'm doing and this is who I am, say that thing and they get that thing out into the world, and people are just like, well, what do you mean by this and what does that mean? And I don't understand. There isn't like a lot of space now for learning. And that part to me feels not dangerous. It just feels like, nuance is a thing that's super important to me as just a human being. Empathy is a huge thing for me as a human being. But also, like, I'm learning the older that I get, I'm 42 this year. I just turned 42 this year. Grace is a thing now that I learn a lot about. And I feel like that's a thing that the internet has lost a lot of. And I feel like in the circles that we roll in, there's even a lot of grace that's not being given to each other in that space, right? Which I feel is the saddest part of where we find ourselves. Not, and this isn't like some like Kai's gonna go on his Joe Rogan cancel culture rant. This is not that. But it is this layer of, there isn't enough grace given to people who are trying to learn in real time. We're all learning in real time. One of the most beautiful things that I see in the accessibility community is, because I talk to Craig and all the other folks from Able Gamers all the time, right? Is the conversation around language and how fluid language is. And we see it in conversations around sexuality all the time. Language is so fluid, right? And what's that conversation been like with folks in the circles that you're talking to around accessibility, about the strategies in which you bring new people into the fold? Because I think that part to me is the hardest part right now. Is like, it's not like people can't rock with the idea of like, there are people who just can't rock with the idea of like, let's make it better for everybody. Those assholes are not in our crews. But I think the people who are like on the periphery, who are just like, oh, in that same space that you were when you got on that panel, right? Like, oh, I didn't know this was a thing, and now I want to be a part of this conversation, and how do I learn? What's the conversations there that folks are having in your circles about, like, how do you course correct people in ways that don't make them feel stupid or make them feel inadequate or make them feel like they don't have access to the knowledge that you and the rest of those folks have?
That's something that I've been very curious about, especially this year, in that before I was always kind of like able to just say I was more of a consultant. Like, I'll work with studios and talk with them about adding accessibility and like I'm being able to like talk about it once it releases and stuff like that. Like that's cool. But then once like I guess got on the grand stage of the internet, I've realized that essentially I've kind of in a way, in a sort of small way, I've been kind of like the door that kind of opens up to people's minds about what accessibility is. And one thing that I love that I've been able to sort of showcase, at least this year, is accessibility is more than just options. It's more than just settings. There's a human factor into accessibility. There are players that want to play games and want to enjoy the same games that their friends are playing, but they can't because of just whatever game is just not able to be accessible to them, whether they can't use a controller or they can't see the text on a screen or they can't hear the gun going off in behind you, and you die instantly. So it's more than just those options. It's like there's a human being behind accessibility, and and something I kind of even found out actually this year was so the team on Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I met with them in 2018, and it was like they were kind of like in the early stages of Valhalla at that point, and I was really I was talking to a lot of the team there, and I was giving them kind of like all of the barriers that I have and possible solutions of things I would love to be able to see in those games. And I could see them like furiously kind of like taking notes. And then I found out years later that ever since that first sort of workshop that I was in, they kind of labeled a lot of the functions and the features that they created the Steve features. And I was like, that blew me away. I was like, are you serious? Like and I was told that that's what helped them like push forward in making sure that these settings and these options made into the game, because there was to them a human being behind the options that they created and that they worked on. And that's something that I feel like for those who are new to finding out about accessibility, it's, yes, in a way, it's it's a menu in a game that allows you to be able to adjust settings and make like remap controls and subtitles and stuff like that. Yes, that's all part of it. But when you see the impact of what accessibility can do to a player, that's where the real impact lies. Because then you can be able to see the joy of a person being able to play a game either for the first time or play a genre that they've never been able to play before, and they finally get to enjoy the hobby that we all love. That's where the real magic is, and that's where the real like amazing part of what I and amazing people in this community have been pushing for years.
That's brilliant. I love that. Actually, you know what? That brings me to something I wanted to show on stream too, because in preparation for you being on the show, I wasn't going to play the Last of Us crying part, because I just like, I know how much, I know it is a certain point. At some point, you're just like, yo, can people stop showing me crying on tonight? But I do want to show But I do want to show this one clip about from one of your most recent videos about Watch Dogs Legion, and I'm going to show that really quick.
Elements, and I was like, okay, all right. And it wasn't until I started to compare the footage from back in July to now where I actually noticed there is a size increase in some of the HUD elements in the game. From some of the little pop-up things that you see to the hacker command wheel is increased in size, to some of the pop-up dialogue boxes and the menus have increased. And it was something I was like, I didn't even notice until I compared it. And I was like, oh. So again, I'm not gonna take credit for this but I also do know that some of the Ubisoft developers did watch our video, and I mean, they possibly might have, but hey, if they did, and they increased it because of like my feedback plus also the other blind players that got to play it and had their feedback, then that's really cool. That means that I just hit the mic. And that means that Ubisoft actually listened to us as accessibility advocates, that one of the things we just wanted to be able to see improved in the final version of the game. So it's not like a huge amount, and I probably wouldn't say it's the best as far as like what we did receive in the final version of the game, because I get it, like a lot of the UI and the engine was kind of already locked in years ago, but I was happy to see that there was improvements being made even a few months before release, which was really, really cool to see.
I have to say, it's super dope to be able to say, I know someone who is changing the future of games. Like, but like seriously, wow. you laugh that off, and I understand, because you're a very humble man. But I think that one of the things that I always go back to when we see so much vitriol happening in the space, and we see so much negativity on social, and we see all this infighting and external fighting and all this fighting happening, sometimes we forget to see that there are wins happening too. And I think that this is important stuff to always kind of go back to say, like, we're moving. Things are trudging along. They're not moving as fast as we want them to move, but they are moving in some form or fashion. I want to talk a little bit about that, and I want to talk about Last of Us 2, but how does it feel to kind of know that, like, yeah, these things are like, they're actually working. They're getting into the games that you've been doing this work on, and other folks in the group that you've been working with?
Well, it's actually seeing that clip, I in a way, like, I actually did forget about that, to be honest. And that kind of brings up essentially kind of what I talked about before. It just sort of like realizing the influencer part of this whole thing. Is that also, like I keep forgetting that, developers also watch my stuff too. And in the context of that particular clip, I made a video with two friends of mine that at caniplaythat.com, which is an amazing site. It's basically like IGN for accessibility reviews. And I had my friends Ben Bayless and Grant Stoner from Can I Play That, and we talked about Watch Dogs because we got invited to play at least 6 hours of Watch Dogs back at the beginning of the summer, and it was cool to see the contrast of, like, because when I finally got that final version of the game and just seeing like what improvements were made just in those first few months, because we gave our feedback essentially in that video, the preview video of our hands-on, and we talked about things we liked, things we would love to have been able to see change. It wasn't until I got that review copy that I was like, oh, they actually did make these changes. And I don't know if they planned it all along or they just needed confirmation of being like, yep, nope, this is what we need to do. Or they were like, oh, shoot, we got to change this because we need to, because the Steve's video or whatever. And I'm like, oh, like I don't understand how like this thing could happen like that, either that quickly, but also like, yeah, you're right. It's like, it's so weird just to see that kind of impact that I don't know. It's surreal, man. That's basically the way I've been described 2020. It's just so surreal.
It's super wild. Like it is one of those things that when I think about again, like what the actual impact that folks are having on the industry looks like. This is the stuff that I think about. It's the stuff that you're doing. It's the stuff that Able Gamers is doing. It's the stuff that, Black Arrow Gamers is doing. It's stuff that Zombie is doing. Like all the stuff that we're all trying to like push together to get things to move in a positive direction. There are some wins to be found, and I think that it is very, very important to kind of look back, not only on this year, which is an anomaly in different ways, but on the totality of where we've come from to where we are now. There is some good to be found. There's some silver linings indeed. We're gonna take a quick break. We have to thank our wonderful sponsors over at Annapurna Interactive for hooking us up and sponsoring Spawn on Me for the past couple of weeks, including this episode tonight. They have been promoting their game, The Pathless, which is this fantastic archery kind of base game. It's fantastic in the way that your character just swoops through the landscapes and shoots all these demons down, and it looks really beautiful and it's gorgeous. It's fantastic looking and sounding game. You can check that thing out on all the platforms that your games are on. I think it's on PS4, PS5, Epic Game Store, and Apple Arcade as well. Make sure you go check that out. And while we take our break, I'm going to let you take a quick look at The Pathless. Welcome back to the Spawn of Me podcast. I'm your host, Kahlief Adams. What the deal be? We are rocking with my man, my mellow Steve Saylor, hanging out, talking about all the wonderful things. It's interesting, just looking at that Pathless trailer. Anytime I hear guitars now, I think of The Last of Us 2.
Yep. It's been that way for me too.
Anytime I hear guitar plucked in that way, I'm just like, yo, where Ellie at? I'm about to you're trying not to get shanked in a corner randomly by Ellie doing that kind of work. But I want to dig into the work you did with The Last of Us 2, because again, we talked a little bit about that before our break, and I feel like of the games that I have seen in the past 5 to 6 years, the work that's been implemented in that game from an accessibility standpoint, you know, when you talked about it during your videos and the one that you shared on Twitter, it is astounding what that company and Naughty Dog did to make all of that happen. Give the folks at home a little bit of a sneak behind the curtain of like what that process was and kind of when they brought you into to kind of help them do some of that work. I'm curious to know all those bits.
So essentially, if you're unaware, The Last of Us is a game by Night. No, I'm kidding. It's that game has over 60 plus accessibility options, and that alone within the accessibility community, that is huge. Normally a game would get maybe 10 to 20, 30 if it's a really good game, but we've never seen that many options in a game for accessibility like of this scale. And one of the things that I was very interested in what they were doing. So they approached me at a game accessibility conference that I was on a panel for, and it was basically like we're a bunch of, again, same thing, bunch of developers throughout the industry kind of came and learned about accessibility, and there was 2 people from Naughty Dog that came up and said, "Hey, we would love to be able to work with you." And like, without really even saying anything, it's like you know that it's The Last of Us. Like, there's nothing beyond like what Uncharted 5. No, it's The Last of Us Part 2. Of course it is. And so they wanted to kind of like send me out to Santa Monica, to their studios, and essentially kind of like get some feedback on kind of what they were working on. I found out just over the course of working with them in that they started the accessibility process at the very beginning, if not before The Last of Us. They really became fully aware of accessibility in a huge way when they were working on Uncharted 4. And there was a disabled gamer, his name was Josh Straub. He approached Naughty Dog and said, "Hey, I would love to be able to play Uncharted, but I can't, and I want to help make that happen." And so they worked with him on a few of the options, and actually even Uncharted 4 at the time was actually seen as a pretty big deal within the accessibility community, because it had the ability to change those settings at the very beginning of the game, which is something we hadn't really seen up until that point. A lot of, and so seeing that from a AAA level, that was really cool. And so they had a few things kind of already started, including one of the main features of The Last of Us Part 2 for accessibility was a high contrast mode, which if you played Uncharted 4 and you completed the game, if you remember unlocking something called Thief mode, where essentially it turned the entire world like in a grayscale and turn Nate into a shade of blue, your enemies in a shade of red, and allowed you to be able to kind of like play the game in that mode. A lot of disabled players were basically saying, "Hey, that's actually a cool accessibility option." And so they kind of took that and moved it into The Last of Us Part 2. And so they kind of started it then. They start from the very beginning, which is something consultants have been saying to studios, like, you got to start from the beginning, because it makes it a lot easier down the line to be able to like lock in those settings and also change any settings if you need to based on feedback. And at first, after talking with Neil Druckmann, I found out that there was a small group of executives that were wanting to be able to make this happen in this game. And Neil said, "Okay, you got a little bit of time. Otherwise, we kind of have to move on if we can't be able to make this happen." And then eventually that team grew. and it just grew, and more of the teams, more of the developers at Naughty Dog essentially like got to work on it. They were passionate about it, and it kind of convinced Neil to say like, all right, yeah, let's make this happen. And I can honestly say I've actually talked to some of the developers. I don't think there was not one person in the entire studio that didn't touch like the accessibility.
Wow.
Every person touched on some aspect of it, and essentially when that came out, there's so many options in there that, and I'll kind of give a small example of like what an impact this game has.
Yeah.
The blind accessibility options, which is something I kind of dealt with more on the low vision side. They're like, the way I've always described blindness, essentially that's more of a spectrum. It's rarely ever an on-off switch where you can't see anything. It's very rare that a blind person is more like a Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles where they can't see anything. So there's a wide like spectrum of how you consider yourself being blind. I can honestly say that this is the only game that I've ever come across where, regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on for blindness, you can be able to play this game and not only play it, but actually complete it. And in some cases, I've seen it where even some like people who are completely blind, like completely sightless, have been able to even get the platinum trophy in The Last of Us. And that is something that has never really ever been done before. Like, this is a landmark moment in accessibility where we're going to be talking about accessibility before The Last of Us Part 2 and after The Last of Us Part 2. And my involvement essentially was like I got a chance to basically like play a bunch of the game. Although I don't know, this might be a tangent story, but I think I have the most unique experience. I won't spoil it any like specific points in the game. You haven't played it, but like basically there is a fate of a particular character in the game that I didn't know about until I played a certain section. And there is a trailer that essentially is a red herring trailer that's the only information I knew going into it. So when I played it and I found out that moment, I was like, oh wait, that's not how it was showed in the trailer. It like when I looked around me, I could see now there's like 7 or 8 Naughty Dog developers standing around me in a circle, and they're just like smiling and not like and just nodding. And I'm like, it took me a second. I'm like, I clued in. I'm like, wait. That's what happened? That like seriously, like that's what you did? And I freaked out for 10, 15 minutes. Just I had to put down the controller. It was like, oh my God, like, are you serious? Like this is what happened? This is what happened? And I'm like, oh my God. And then when I finally like calmed down and realized, okay, like this is what they did, and this is the turn that this game takes. It was then that the scene that they brought up afterwards. You're gonna love this. I'll only say like what the name of the scene, because like you're not gonna believe it, but this is the God's honest truth. The scene that they had me play after I realized that was the museum scene.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. No.
It was the most charming and heartbreaking scene I have ever played. And it was the best for me, because I was like, oh my God, I finally get to see this. And it's like, it was so good. And it's not the scene that plays right after this moment either. So it's just like, it was
they
so
just
cool.
served you like a bed of razor blades and then like a bag of kittens. Like, what the hell?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Oh my God. That's wild. That's awesome. I mean, and also shout out to Naughty Dog for being like wild masochists to be like, yo, we're gonna give you this scene, which is the most impactful scene in the game.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, that's great. That makes me like them even more.
I know. It's like, because that's the thing. I like it, and I still say to this day, like that is my all-time favorite scene in the entire game. It's the giraffe scene from the first game. Like that to me is like it. Like, and I think I have the most unique experience out of like anyone in the entire world, and I love them for it. And it's like, yeah, they're masochists, but they definitely know how to be able to pull the heartstrings. That's for sure. And it's like, yep, that just made me love them even more.
Wow. Okay. I mean, you definitely get to like check that off your box of just like wildest Last of Us 2 experience that you're able to have. Okay, so I want to ask this because I think this is a part of the thing that always kind of runs through my head when we have these conversations. Is that you talked about that number of accessibility options in Last of Us 2. I think you just said it was 40 or something to that effect, right? 60.
Yeah.
In your mind, because like you said, there is a kind of like pre-Last of Us 2 and then post-Last of Us 2 in terms of like what games should be or could be doing to make these experiences better for people. Do you feel like at this point in the conversations that you're having with folks that people are sharing knowledge between studios? Like, I feel like that's one of the things that I've seen on a fairly consistent basis, was just being like, oh, this really cool thing that just happened here is not happening in all these other places where it could be. Is it something that you're like hearing people say like, oh, well, you know, we cribbed this from these folks, or, you know, this stuff that we saw in this other game that we thought would be smart to add here, we snagged some of that and put it into our game too. Is that a conversation that's happening in terms of accessibility stuff that you're seeing and hearing about?
Oh, totally. There's a lot of like kind of like duplication and different studios being like, oh, this game did this. What if we tried it? And it's stuff like that. That is starting to happen. I don't think we'll probably see the true impact of what The Last of Us has done until probably a couple of years from now, because obviously development takes a lot of time and resources to kind of put in. But I do know that Naughty Dog is sharing that accessibility information within their PlayStation studios. So that is something that is being done internally. But even on the other side, on Microsoft, they've been doing this for a while now. They actually have a initiative, a team within Xbox called Gaming for Everyone. And it's run by a lot of champions within Xbox that are advocates for accessibility. And they work with their first party studios to try to be able to make their games as accessible as possible. It's still up to the studios to really kind of like add in a lot of the resources that they can within the game, and it's a different challenge every single game that they work on. But there is sort of a baseline that is there that, if allowed to grow, it can definitely, like, they can all feed each other. And I even see that in Ubisoft. Pretty much a lot of the Ubisoft titles in the past 2-3 years. I mean, I know Ubisoft has gotten a lot of bad rap this year alone, and rightfully so for a lot of reasons. Right. But one of the things they've been doing extremely well is in accessibility. You can see, if you really kind of dive deep into a lot of the releases that they've released within the past few years, they all carry the DNA of the franchise previous to it. There's always something that they are adding on to essentially a suite of accessibility options that they've kind of been carrying from game to game. And it's not even just within franchises, it's cross franchise. So stuff we see now in the most recent game in Valhalla has been in it, like you've seen in Watch Dogs or in The Division, or even in Hyperscape. Like, it's all that stuff is there, and it's kind of built on each other. And that's one of the things I love about this industry, is that they all want to share as much as knowledge and resources as best as possible. And that, I think, that kind of goes across. It goes across like the console wars in a way. Like, it's stuff that I know for a fact that there are people at Microsoft looking at Sony and The Last of Us and seeing like, okay, what can we do there? And they talk, and then they kind of like share that information. And so accessibility is for all, and I'm loving, and it's not territorial. It's but what I also do love is that there is also a bit of competition there, where Sony and Microsoft essentially are like, okay, like let's see if we can be able to kind of keep moving the ball forward. And when we have that kind of competition, it just makes it better for the player in the long run, because like when companies are trying to outdo each other for accessibility, that just makes it better for the disabled players. And I'm like, I'll eat the popcorn as they try to like compete against each other. It's fine for me. That means more games I can be able to play. So it definitely is something that is totally being shared across the industry.
Before we pivot to, I want to hear what you've been playing and stuff you've been digging of late. But before we pivot to that, I'm really curious. What's some of the kind of like major things that you still don't see kind of being the baseline things that are being added into these games right now? I know, of course, there are lists for multiple different kinds of disabilities, but I think there are some possible things that are kind of like the low hanging fruit that we would say that people should be kind of implementing into the game that they're not necessarily hitting on it in those ways. What are some of the things you kind of want to see as a baseline for accessibility in games going forward?
Yeah, I'll probably I mean, there's a lot of things obviously the different types of disabilities. So being able to remap controls completely is something that for motor disabilities, something that's still kind of like it's in a lot of games now, but it's still kind of like pretty complex and can be difficult for disabled players still. And the fact that Sony doesn't have a hardware solution for those players is something that I'm still like, I would love for them to be able to see as an adaptive controller like Xbox has. For the blind players, there's two main things that I still want to be able to see more of, and that is the going away from using small text in games. We saw a lot of that within the past few years, and I just want more options to be able to adjust the size of these games. There's and then also the ability to be able to have narration for all text in the game, because that's something that blind players need a lot. I need a lot and would help me immensely, whether that's narration through voiceover or through a built-in API, stuff like that. That would be absolutely great, and definitely would be like a low-hanging fruit for sure. And then even for deaf and hard of hearing, just more versatility with subtitles and full captions. Sometimes we're kind of getting a little bit better at. There could be some tweaks here and there, but the thing that we're also missing is full captions, where the sound effects are not necessarily, there's not a visual element to it. So if there's someone shooting at you from behind, there's really nothing. There's some games that don't really have that kind of thing that tells you like visually that there's someone shooting you from behind. There's certain games that do it better than others, but that's something that full captions, or at least the ability to be able to visualize sound, is something that's still being that can easily be worked on, I think, throughout. So those are kind of like like you said, the low hanging fruit of accessibility. I would love to see more become, essentially those low hanging fruits become standards in accessibility moving forward.
Badass. I'm happy to hear that. And I mean, I forgot what game I was playing maybe 2 weeks ago, and that thought came into my head. I was like, if I can't see this, how in the hell can anyone who's visually impaired see this? Like, literally, I can't see this, and I have a big ass TV and I can't see it.
So I have a little tiny story about that I heard from a developer. So there was one, I won't say the name of the developer of the game that they're working on, but they told me the story of there was this one art director that was trying to be able to lower the size of the text in the games because he wanted everyone to see the beautiful environments and the arts of the game itself, and we need to push everything off to the side so that all this amazing environments can come through. And this one developer was basically going in after hours guerrilla style and just slowly increasing the text size again, like just little bits at a time, so that the art director didn't even notice. And it's still like the game came out and it didn't have a huge amount of like larger text per se, but at least it was better than what it was. And so it just basically the art director just didn't even notice that they had been kind of like, he'd been losing the battle of the small text. Right? So.
I gotta love that. Like it was kind of almost like they were dead secking the game.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's dope. That's super dope. We're almost out of time, which is nuts because this time has flown. I can keep you on here for like another hour, talk about all the other stuff. Especially before we talk about the games you've been playing, I am extremely jealous that you got to hang out with Troy Baker and talk to Troy Baker about the Matrix, because I am also a Matrix nerd, and I love the fact that you all talked about the Matrix. But we can't talk about it now because we don't have no time. But we're going to talk about it even if it's offline. We'll talk about Matrix stuff. Jealous, extremely jealous.
You know.
But what have you been playing? What's the stuff you've been digging into? I know you got both next gen consoles. You've been playing a bunch of that. So what have you been up to and playing?
So I've been playing a lot of Destiny because the expansion for Beyond Light came out, and it's the first time I've done this in a very long time. But my friends and I, we basically like steamrolled through the campaign. Literally on launch day, we spent 8.5 hours completing the entire single player campaign, nice. Which was awesome. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm playing on that. I've been mostly playing it on PS5, but I've been jumping back into Xbox back and forth because of the whole cross-platform cross-platform save, which is great. And then I've been rocking Miles Morales for the past few weeks. It is so good. I am this close of getting the platinum trophy. I've got like 9 trophies left, and actually, you said that this episode, like audio, goes up on Friday, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So actually, on this Friday, I will be streaming sort of my like platinum run on Miles Morales, and I'm also going to be raising money for I Need Diverse Games to kind of celebrate that. So yeah, hopefully by Friday I'll get my fingers crossed, I'll get my platinum trophy in Miles Morales. So I'm excited.
All right, Brookago, you know what you need to do then. You know you need to go and check out the stream and help Steve get to that platinum and push him forward. Making sure he gets that platinum in there. And also, Sony, please stop making it so that you get that little recorded video and that little picture every time you get a trophy. You know I
like that, honestly. I think that's like a cool little feature. I'm like, oh yeah, I get to relive that moment.
I want them to do it, but I want them to make those files really small because I'm never going to share it.
Right.
They just take up so much space.
About that.
Let me put them on. Well, I guess you can probably still do it. You can probably kick them off to external storage. That's a whole other conversation about the next gen consoles and external storage and blah. But
yeah.
Steve, fam, you are fantastic. Again, like you continue to just like make everything you touch golden, and you continue to make every space that you rock in just infinitely better. I wish nothing but the most good coming to you in the next year and the rest of this year. I know you had some stuff in the crib. You had a flood, and I'm happy to see you bounce back from that. You had some stuff going on there, but it's always been great to see you just bring this wonderful energy that you have and continue to push for this so important aspect of the games that we play. So thank you for coming through and rocking with us tonight, man. It's been a pleasure to have you. And of course, now that you're an official Brookago resident because you've become a guest on the show, that means you got to come back and come rock with me some more.
Hell yeah, and the pleasure's all mine, sir. Thank you so much. And like you've been rocking this year like so much. Like I need to like get me some of that spawn on me shoes, man. I need to get me one of a pair of those. Like, man, that's so dope. But like, I mean, dude, you got a shoe deal. My good sir. Like that's so dope. But anyway, thank you for having me on and introducing me to the residents of Brookago. I'm extremely honored.
Always, man. Again, go follow Steve. Steve's info is going to be in all of our show notes. You see his Twitter tag right on screen as we speak. Again, everybody in podcast land, make sure you go check him out. Everybody in broadcast land and in Twitch land, make sure you go give him some love because he absolutely deserves it. Much love to you, Steve. I will get up with you after the show. We'll chat a little bit later offline as well about some game stuff because we got to play. We haven't had a chance to play anything since we did our What's Good Games run, so we got to play some more.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
hell yeah.
All right, Steve. So we're going to get up out of here. We'll let you go. Everybody in Brookago, give him some love. Give him some love out there in them Twitter streets. Yo, this is what you get when you come to Spawn on Me. Steve is fantastic. He's brilliant. It is always dope to be able to bring folks who are experts in their field to be able to talk about the wonderful things they're doing. And also, I love to be able to talk to people about them changing the world. This is nuts. This is so dope. It's true. That man changed the world. And all the folks who've been doing this work, they've been changing the world. So it's great to be able to have that in this place. So we're going to get up out of here. Again, be careful for your holiday week. The weekend's going to be coming up. Again, travel has been wild now because everybody just magically thought that COVID didn't happen. And they're on the planes now, rolling around, going and seeing their families. Please be safe. Please make sure you're wearing your mask. Make sure you're washing your hands. Make sure you're washing your butt. That's just for hygiene because we don't want you stinking out in the streets. But make sure you're doing all that work. The show will be up on Friday. Videos will be up on early next week or so. Again, huge shout out again to the folks over at Logitech. If you saw that video that I shared on Twitter a little bit earlier about them helping us to outfit Spawn on Me Studios 2.0, that is a blessing and a half. Magical things to that. Dr. Jones asks in the chat what happened to voicemails. Those are going into separate shows. Those are going to go into a bi-weekly show called Ask Ka Anything, but we need more voicemails. Speakpipe.com/phone-on-me is where you can send me more voicemails to be like, yo, Ka, your food sucks. All that kind of stuff. Also, we have something very special on November 28th that's going to be happening at 10 a.m. PST. Again, November 28th, 10 a.m. PST. You're going to want to make sure that you're looking at my Twitter feed, twitter.com/Kajakins, KHJHKINS, on that day. It'll be up there for a while because the rib beef that Paris and I will be coming to a head on that day. I have a very special message for him, and I brought a couple friends along to talk about our rib beef. So again, 10 a.m. PST, November 28th is the 1-year anniversary of our rib beef. So I want you to make sure you're checking that out because the little tweet that's going to go up is probably going to surprise and delight all of you at home. So we'll see about that. Again, massive love to our friends over at Annapurna Interactive for sponsoring the show. Massive love for them showing up and giving us love for the Pathless, which is a game you should absolutely go check out and play. And yeah, we're going to get up out of here for this week. Much love to you all at home. And please, 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 please do the right thing. Don't eat cornbread because it's terrible. And I want you all to live. I don't want you to eat cornbread out in these streets. Like I want you to not have cement in your throat when you go and eat your food. So don't do that, please. All right. Much love to you all. See you on a bit. Remember, Saturday is going to be a really fun day. Ha 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 ha. Later.